What's up everybody, Raiko here. Today, I've got a deck profile for you. With Infinite Forbidden being released, there are a lot of really powerful decks that are now viable in the TCG meta. However, a good amount of these unfortunately are a bit overpriced, and therefore it can be very difficult to be able to play a competitive deck for a reasonable price. But what's so unique about this specific deck is it's very budget friendly, and it's very, very good into a lot of the matchups that you're gonna find. Whether that be Smith Snake Eye, Yubel, Tenpai, this deck has a good matchup into a lot of the best deck, and with that, it's definitely looking to be a very good pick. Paleozoic, especially going into the Infinite Forbidden, with the new support released being Magical Idol Soul and the Volmina, the Dragon level 2 Pendulum. There's definitely a lot of flexibility, deck building, and a lot of powerful steps up. Before we jump right into the deck profile, thank you all so much for your support. If you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing as it helps a bunch. With that, you know what? Let's just jump right into the video. So starting off, this is a 60 card paleo, and that's because we do play triple pot of desires. And you know, when you're resolving desires and you're resolving Morganite, you need as many cards to draw as possible. And if you're getting lower and lower on deck count, especially when you're trying to get into a grind game with this deck, that's definitely not a good thing. So overall, playing 60 cards is definitely favorable for this. With that, let's just jump right in. So of course, to begin with, we've got triple soldier dragons. This card is very, very good, especially with the release of the new Volmina. It's very powerful, it's a soft once per turn, and it can summon itself. Soldier Dragon can go into Soldier Dragon, can go into Soldier Dragon, and then whatever you want from there. And then the two other Soldier Dragon targets we are playing, of course, is the new card Volmina. This card is very, very powerful. It's essentially a double compulse, and it makes your boards a lot stickier and more difficult to deal with, and it makes your grind game a lot better as well. And then the other Soldier Dragon's target we have is Laundry Dragon Maid. This card on normal or special summon lets you mill 3. It is also a level 2. Both of these are level 2, very, very important. And again, this package is very, very good and overall worth playing. And then of course, the new card that I think is the best addition to this deck is Magical Idol Soul. This card states, if a monster is special summoned by your trap effect, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard. But if you summon it from the graveyard, banish it when it leaves the field. During your opponent's battle phase, quick effect, you can activate one of these effects. You can either immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon using this card you control, or XYZ summon using this card you control. And of course, given that this is a paleo deck, we're definitely going to be using that XYZ summon a lot more than the synchro summon. Overall, it's a very, very good card. It's an aqua, it's a level 2, and it continuously floats back whenever you summon a paleo. Very, very good, makes your grind games a lot better. It makes it easier to make rank 2s. And then the last monster we're playing, of course, is Triple Backjack. Backjack is an incredible card, especially in this deck, and we are maxing out on Fiend Griefing as well, but we'll get into that later. So overall, you want to play triple Backjack, you want to max out on this. This allows you to stack your deck, get the trap cards you need, and overall can just help you win games very easily with this card. Continuing with the deck profile, we've got, for the spells, 1 Reasoning. Because we play so little monsters, we only play 9 monsters, Reasoning is an absurd card, and even if your opponent knows what you're playing and calls level 2, that's totally fine, because you're still going to be milling a bunch of cards with this anyways. And if, for example, you hit the Magical Idol Soul, then it's fine to be in the graveyard anyways. Overall, I highly recommend playing this card. And then continuing with the spells, we have Triple Trap Tantalizing Tune. This is very good. It is susceptible to Ash Blossom, which can hurt, but being able to pitch a trap from your hand to draw 2 and get your paleos into grave, or if you draw rollbacks, for example, and putting them in grave is very, very beneficial. Overall, this just helps you cycle through your deck a bit more while putting traps in the grave. And then of course, as mentioned earlier, we are playing Triple Desires. This is just a free draw 2 in this deck, and given that we're playing 60 cards, you can a lot of times resolve more than 1 desires as well. Card advantage in this deck is very, very crucial, so being able to get a +1 off desires is very important. If you're playing a 60 card paleo list, you definitely need desires in there somewhere. And then for the last spell, of course, we're playing triple Time Tearing Morganite. We are playing a grindy deck, we don't play any hand traps, so overall this is a very solid card. Also, having 2 normal summons does come up from time to time as well. This is a very solid card for this deck, and I highly recommend playing it. Even if you're gonna change up the build a little bit or test something out, keep Morganited. I promise you, when it comes to the grind game, you're definitely, this card being able to draw 2 every turn helps so much. And that's it for the spells. So it's a low monster count, low spell count, and then of course we've got a high trap count. The rest of the deck is traps, so let's just jump right in. Of course, we're gonna max out on all the good paleo names. So with that, we've got 3 Olenoids, which is the MST. We've got 3 Canadia, which is the Book of Moon. We've got 3 Dinomischus, which Target one, banish it face up. Very, very good. We've got triple Marilla. Dump any trap from deck to grave, not once per turn. None of the Paleos are once per turn. And then triple Leoncola. This allows you to target a banished card and to return it to the grave. This card is definitely one of the MVPs of the deck, especially because it allows you to recycle your rollbacks. And once you get the rollback loop going, being able to have the Leoncolias, very, very powerful. Overall, you definitely need to max out on these Paleo names. Continuing with the cards that aren't Paleos, we have triple Threatening Roar. This card, very, very solid into 10 pi, but overall remaining 3 Threatening Roar and 3 Rise to Full Height because we are a trap deck. We do not put up a lot of damage or board presence, so being able to guarantee that you'll survive either with Rise to Full Height or Threatening Roar is very important. Plus, it has that added bonus of if you play against 10 pi, you're in a very good position because they just won't be able to OTK you. Continuing with the traps, we have triple Needle Bug Nest. This card is very solid. It's not once per turn, and it fills your graveyard with cards you want, whether it be Rollback, Backjack, the Magical Idol Soul. There's a lot of cards that are good to mill off this, and if you hit a rollback, just getting a bunch of different options of trap cards in your grave is very, very solid. We are playing triple Fiend Griefing as well. This is just solid graveyard interruption, plus sets up our Backjack. So overall, very important. You want to max out on this. And then the true MVP of this deck, the reason why this deck is even playable at all, is Daruma Karma Cannon. This card is fantastic into this upcoming meta. It was fantastic this past meta, and post Infinite Forbidden, it's still just as good. There's very few decks right now that are putting up Omni Negates, and Yubel is one of the big ones that they do put up Omni Negate, but given the fact that this is not once per turn, and if this resolves, chances are you're probably getting yourself in a position to where it's going to be hard to lose. Daruma Karma Cannon, it's definitely something you want to max out on, and this is one of your biggest win cons of the deck. This is what allows you to help control the board, and what gives you a chance going second. Overall, very, very powerful. Continuing with the traps, we have double Balance of Judgment. This card is very, very solid. 3 can be a bit cloggy, so if you want to play 3, go for it, but again, it's just kind of cloggy and I'd rather have some other traps in there. But this is a very solid card, being able to just get all your resources back if your opponent combos you and really commits to the board and you're running low on resources. Also, rollback can copy this from the grave as well to be able to draw you a bunch of cards. So overall, I've resolved Balance of Judgment like for draw 6 or draw 7 at times, and it just gets you back into the game. It's a very solid card, and playing it to some capacity, I'm playing it at 2 because it's a trap trick, but you definitely can play 3. But I'm giving other cards a run right now, and it's testing well at 2. You don't see it often, but you see it just when you need it. Continuing with the traps, the one-ofs, we've got one Lost Wind. This is just a solid card overall, and being able to be a normal trap, plus it's just something that recycles itself back from the grave. Plus the attack half does come up from time to time, being able to make it to where you're less likely to die as well. Overall, it's just solid card advantage from this one card. Play one Spiritual Swords of Revealing Light. This card is one I'm testing. I'm still kind of back and forth on, but from testing so far, it is definitely pretty solid. This is essentially your 7th card of being able to live. You have the triple Threatening Roar, triple Rise to Full Height, and then the one Swords of Revealing Light, which allows you to essentially buy time to regather your resources. Plus, it's a good mill as well. And then continuing with the traps, we have triple Trap Trick. Of course, this card is absolutely bonkers in this deck, and you don't want to run any less than 3. This gets you everything in your deck, and you can also copy it off rollback. Overall, very, very solid. And then of course we are playing the triple rollback card, is definitely one of the win cons as well. Being able to copy any trap from the grave, very, very solid overall. This enables you to just do so much. And then one of the best rollback targets we are playing, it is a brick, but it's just too good not to play. Of course, it's Elemental Burst. If you don't know what this card does, you contribute one of each wind, water, fire, and earth monsters to activate this card, so that is the cost. Destroy all cards on your opponent's side of the field. So rollback can copy burst to just destroy all cards on your opponent's side of the field. It's very solid overall, and although it is a bit of a brick, if you can get the setup in the graveyard with rollback, it's definitely great. And if you draw this, it's not the end of the world either, because your Trap Tantalizing Tune can put it in the grave, your Dynamicus can put it in the grave. There are definitely ways to get around it. But overall, I definitely like playing with this card. If you're playing Paleo, definitely consider Elemental Burst. And that's the main deck, 60 cards. So with that, let's just get into the extra deck now. For the links, we have one Salamangreat Almirage. This allows you to put your Backjack into the grave, essentially. It does come up from time to time, the protection effect, but again, it's essentially just to help you put something into the grave. You can play Anima, but I feel Almirage is a bit better in testing, especially since a lot of people do respect Anima, given how prevalent it is in the meta. So Almirage, it's definitely a solid choice. We are playing one of the Paleozoic Link 2. This doesn't really come up too often. If you are going for the Zelantis OTK, which of course we are playing, if you're going for the Zelantis OTK, this Link 2 does come up. It's very, very good. Zelantis, it has acute effects with Anemone. Anemone locks you into water. And then Zelantis, when you banish the field and resummon everything, because you're locked into summoning water, if your opponent's monsters aren't water, they don't get summoned back to their field. So if you coral an enemy, bring back this, and then link these two off into Zelantis, that allows you to essentially board wipe them. But it does come up and it's very powerful. And then of course we are playing one SP Little Knight. What can I say? It's a SP Little Knight. This is just a solid card. And we are playing a grind deck, so having a Little Knight active in the grind game is very, very good. And that's the links. Next, we'll jump right into the XYZs, which should be the rest of the extra deck. It is. So we've got, of course, triple Paleozoic Opabenia. This card is phenomenal. I love this card, being able to search any of your Paleozoics, plus activate any of your Paleozoics from hand. This card comes up way too often, and yes, 3 copies do come up more often than you think. You can cut down on one for something else, but again, triple Opabenia does come up. This is what allows you to get, like, on your turn 2 or your turn 4 or your turn 3, when your opponent passes back to you and you overlay your Paleos, this is what allows you to essentially search whatever you need. And then of course, after you're done making Opabenia, your next XYZ you're usually going into is Anomalocaris. This card is absurd. This is your boss monster of the deck. It's all the Paleos are unaffected by monster effects, so it has that. And then if a trap is sent from your spell or trap zone to the grave, you can excavate the top card of your deck, and if it's a trap, you can add it to your hand. So this gets you resources as well. And then during either player's turn, if it has trap as material, you can detach and then target a card on the field, on either field, and destroy it. So you can pop anything on your opponent's field, and then also if you drew a rollback or an elemental burst, you can also pop your own stuff. And then if you're setting it to your spell and trap zone, you pop it, you can excavate and then get another trap off that. Just a lot of value with this card, very, very good overall. And with the introduction of the new cards from Infinite Forbidden, it's a lot easier to make this, especially since you can make it on your opponent's battle phase to get a quick effect pop. Very solid, and playing 2 does come up. And then continuing with the XYZs, of course, we have one Totally Awesome. It's a fantastic card. You don't make it as often anymore, but still having one there is important, especially given how often we XYZ summon now. Having this extra option for an Omni Negate is very, very powerful. We're playing the one Downard. Of course, this comes up often because when you're cracking boards, a lot of times you're doing so from Zeus. And speaking of which, we are playing 2 Zeus. The third does come up, actually, and there have been times where I was thinking about cutting one of the Paleo XYZs, the 3 of, to 2, so I can bump up Zeus to 3, but it doesn't come up so often to where I find it necessary. But again, this card is absolutely phenomenal. It's your win con, and some acute interaction is all of your Paleos are unaffected by monster effects, so if you Zeus the field and you have Paleos up, your Paleos aren't going to be sent to the grave, they're just going to stay on field. Very, very strong, very good in this deck. You're making this more often than you can think. And then the last XYZ, of course, is the one Typhon. Typhon, it comes up, especially in grindy games, and that's what this deck does. You're just grinding with this deck. So overall, playing Typhon is definitely recommended. And that's the extra deck. And then for the side deck, I'm opting to play. It is triple barrier statue of the Torrent. This is, you're playing all waters, essentially, except for the soldier dragons in the Volmina. But other than that, this never really hinders your gameplay. And if you can set this up going first against most of the meta decks, you're probably winning, especially if you can protect this with one of the Paleos, for example, the Paleo that books a card. Your opponent summons something, tries to attack over this, you can just book it and you're fine. And then one of the best reasons to play this deck this meta, we are playing triple Lava Golem. We're playing triple Lava Golem and triple Sphere Mode. These cards are absurd this meta. The only problem is not a lot of decks can play it because the normal summon is very important. But with Paleo, the normal summon isn't as important. So being able to play these cards is very, very huge. The boards that are being set up are usually committing to at least 2 monsters, usually 3. So being able to just clear their field with a single normal summon and then set 5 and pass, it's very hard to lose from that game state. So overall, One of the big deciding factors of this format is if you can play these kinds of cards, and because Paleo can max out on Sphere Mode and Lava Golem, it's definitely one of the better choices for this meta. Continuing with the side deck, we have Triple Evenly. Now, I'm back and forth on this card. Evenly is good, and it's definitely solid going second, and you can technically copy it off of Rollback. But this slot, this 3 of slot, is very interchangeable. One thing I was testing with, and something you can consider testing with, is instead of playing Evenly, you can play Dimensional Shifter. Now, the whole purpose of Dimensional Shifter is to get your opponent to pass their turn, so you can start your turn and set your trap cards and pass back to them. But what's nice about this is better in the grind game, and this is better as a 6 card to draw, whereas D-Shifter, you really want it in your opening 5 cards. And given that we're playing 60, it's not too likely that you'll see Shifter as often as you want. So as of now, I'm opting to play Evenly, but again, you can definitely consider running Shifter because the whole goal of going second is to cancel out what your opponent's trying to do. You're either trying to Lava Golem and Sphere Mode them to completely break the board that they built, or if you play Shifter, that'll keep them from building a board at all. So overall, you just want to get that turn, that guaranteed survival. So right now, Evenly is fine, but it may change to Shifter again. And then the last 3 traps we are playing is 2 different Dimension Ground. We play 2 because of Trap Trick, and this, again, same idea with Shifter. This is essentially a turn skip and guarantees survival. And then the last trap we are playing is 1 Anti-Spell. It's a one-of, it's a 60 card deck, but if you see it, you're usually in a good spot. Being able to slow down the game state to guarantee you get a turn 3, it's very, very strong, and yes, although it's a one-of, it's still worth it to play. And that's the deck profile. If you liked it, let me know in the comments below. I know this profile I know Paleo can be built in a lot of different ways, and I'm curious to know, is there anything that I'm missing from this build? Is there anything you guys would recommend? Let me know in the comments below. But thank you all so much if you stood around this long, and until next time, peace.